Hello and welcome to Strategic Compass. Today we are joined by Firas Naqvi of Pakistan, who is an expert on regional geopolitics. We are going to talk about what has been going on in that part of the world. In particular, lately there was, the whole thing basically started with President Trump asking for the return of Bagram Airport to the United States control. And then there were skirmishes between Pakistan and Pakistani and the Afghani troops on the border, which almost turned into a full-scale fighting for a while at least. Then tension seems to have subsided, but I think the problem certainly lies deep in the region, with the Chinese being quite involved in the Afghani exploitation of the mining, and Pakistan being a close ally of China against India. But now Afghanistan and Taliban in particular is acting together with India. And at the same time, Pakistan trying to keep up its relationship and its alliance with China, but at the same time, it is also problematic for Pakistan to keep its relationship with the United States for a number of reasons. So how is Pakistan going to basically fare in that geopolitical struggle? And what has actually happened, for our viewers? We have Firas Naqvi, who has joined our program. And thank you very much, Firas.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hassan. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Well, let's start with the sequence of events. I think the whole thing started with Trump's demand of return to the American control of the Bagram Airport. Now, can you tell us a bit about that, please?
Yes, actually, the whole thing started long before that. We have entered into 2025 and we have seen that there has been a surge in the terrorist activities and terrorist attacks inside Pakistan. So far, we have witnessed over 500 terrorist attacks in our border regions. And not only the civilians have died, but also our armed forces have given a lot of sacrifices. So the Pakistani authorities have time and again told the Afghan counterparts to rain down those terrorist activities and to rain down and to take some concrete actions and targeted operations against those terrorist outfits that are using Afghan soil for carrying out their attacks. And primarily, Pakistan was focused upon the TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which has once again gained the momentum after the overtake of Kabul by the Afghan Taliban. Alongside that, there are various other groups like the ISKP, Islamic State of Khorasan province. And Pakistan was concerned that because of this unreined terrorist activities and because of the legacy of Indian presence inside Afghanistan, Pakistan might be stuck in a two-front war. We have already seen the mild conflict with India, and after that, now we have seen some sort of disturbance from our western border. So I think that is not suitable for Pakistan. So that is why Pakistan is not alone in this in sharing that concern. The Chinese have shared the similar sort of concern. The Russians have shared the similar sort of concerns, as well as the Iranian, the four major players vis-a-vis the security of Afghanistan. So all of these neighboring states of Afghanistan have time and again asked for the crumbing of terrorist activities, to integrate the other political actors into the government, and to have a consensus-based political setup. But unfortunately, all of these demands have been ignored by the Afghanian side. And this time, the terrorists from Afghanistan carried out operation in the northern and western part of Pakistan, in which we have witnessed 20 to 30 sacrifices of our armed forces and civilians. And that has really prompted Pakistan to take some concrete actions. And following that, the Afghan authorities have also tried to start another front in our border. So that is why it was upon the Pakistani authorities to take some actions, and that is why we have seen that Pakistan strike deep inside the Afghan territory into the Kabul, Kandahar, and other regions, just to have those terrorist outfits and preventing them to getting and to launching the attacks on Pakistan.
Well, so in terms of regional cooperation, Pakistan basically is cooperating, even collaborating with Russia, China, and Iran in terms of in keeping under control the terrorist activities streaming out of Afghanistan, as you put it. But where does Trump's demand basically fit into in the whole picture you have described, and why did he want it?
Well, I think one of the primary reasons for Donald Trump to demand the return of that base inside Afghanistan has to do something with China, because we have seen that Trump has championed or presented itself as the deal broker, as a peacemaker. And there is only one thing that has been left to fit into the profile of Donald Trump 2.0, and that is its relation with China. And we have seen that not only economically, but after the Myanmar conflict between Pakistan and India, China has also emerged as a reliable and credible arms exporter, because we have seen that Pakistan has utilized the Chinese fighter jets as well as Chinese missiles that have helped Pakistan to gain victory over India. So I think that has really alarmed the Western policy-making circles, specifically the US policy-making circles, that India-Pak Myanmar conflict was regarded as a triumph of Chinese weaponry over the sophisticated Western weaponry. So in order to checkmate that, I think this is a demand put forward by US President Donald Trump. But I don't think that it is as easy as it seems, because the return of any possibility or probability, even the weakest one, by the US administration to return to the Afghanistan would not sit well with either Russia, China, or Iran for that matter. So I think it would be very difficult for the Donald Trump to basically replicate it into some practical steps. And not only that, but also the Afghan Taliban would not like it. And there is a fear that if US is to enforce its will again, so it would again lead to the sort of a conflictual situation or a civil war situation, and this time there is a possibility that it will spiral across the region as well, because now China is involved, Russia is involved, Iran is basically concerned that the Afghan chapter would not re-engage its military capabilities, considering its already military engagement in the Middle East vis-a-vis Israel. So I think all of these factors combined, it would be very difficult for the US to some sort of mingle its way towards Afghanistan once again.
Well, after the 9/11 events, when the United States wanted to attack Afghanistan, basically it acted together with Pakistan, didn't it? You know, to a large extent. So it was the Pakistani armed forces, particularly the intelligence service, which knew all about the Taliban. And, you know, they had the first-hand experience. Indeed, they were the ones in, how shall I say, bringing them about in the first place to get some law and order back to Afghanistan in the first place. So they knew all that. But this time round, Pakistan is not doing so. Basically, there may be Pakistani Afghani skirmishes or even some sort of fighting on the border, occasional fightings and occasional lulls. But this doesn't mean that Pakistan is acting or doing the bid of the United States, does it?
No, definitely not, Dr. Hassan. Back in 9/11, we have a concrete evidence, and it was a global effort, global coalition, that is why we call it global war on terror. It has the UN backing, and Pakistan being the immediate neighborhood of Afghanistan and have the know-how and traditional influence during the time of Afghan Jihad or Afghan war, as I would put it in that way. So Pakistan was an obvious choice for the US policy making circles, both civilian and military, and that is why we have seen the quite a proactive role of Pakistan in the global war on terror. But this time around, it is not the case, because right now there is not an immediate threat to the US security from Afghanistan. Afghanistan is crippled within its own domestic security apparatus. The only stakeholders right now are the neighboring states, because instability in Afghanistan would definitely impact the neighboring state, not the US or the Europe for that matter. So this time around, it is either Russia, China, Pakistan, or Iran for that matter who would have the first-hand say in bringing about stability or some sort of creating some sort of structure of mechanism for the regional proceedings. And that is why we have seen that this time around, it would be very difficult for the US to impose its will, because there is no legitimate interest. There would be no credible evidence that US is feeling threatened by the activities of Taliban or by non-state actors that are being present inside Afghanistan. Right now, if the US has some sort of security stakes that has the potential to target its sovereignty or to carry out some attacks on the US soil, I think that region is the Middle East, not South Asia for that matter, because the near to 2 year war conflict in Gaza has basically created a lot of anti-American sentiments inside the Middle Eastern population, whether they are the civilians group, militias, or armed state actors, terrorist outfits, belligerents, or whatever. So I think if the US is really concerned about its security, I think the Middle East would be the region from which there is slight potential that US might get attacked from, not South Asia. So this is why I think and I believe that returning to Afghanistan would not be a viable option, and it would not be allowed by the regional states, and it would get a lot of resistance from every other country that is neighboring Afghanistan.
So basically, what has been going on between Pakistan and Afghanistan, which has subsided, in all forms, basically, as we can see from outside, has nothing to do with the with Trump's demand of Bagram Airport's return to American control. So, but there is one problem which I would like you to basically shed light on. That is, Pakistan has its own problems with Afghanistan. Although Pakistan was the initiator of Taliban movement in a sense, but over the years, because of the Pashtun movement, if you like, Pashtun nationalism and what have you, Pakistan and Afghanistan seems to be at odds. There is also Taliban inside Pakistan, which is a terrorist movement, according to Pakistan, and also it is, I think, designated as a terrorist movement by the United Nations. Now, can you also explain all that to us? So, because that Pakistan and Afghanistan are at odds with each other over this Pashtun nationalism and what have you, Afghanistan seems to be gravitating towards India, so that Pakistan-India conflict has a dimension to what's happening inside Afghanistan, doesn't it?
Definitely, Professor Hassan, and that is what I mentioned earlier in my talk, that the Afghan angle or the conflict with Afghanistan should be viewed from the lens of Indo-Pakistan perspective, Indo-Pakistan conflictual perspective, because there is evidence and it is in public knowledge that many of the Indian spies have frequently traveled from the Afghanistan soil into the Pakistan soil. Because of the harshness of terrain, it is very difficult to supervise all the area that covers the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. So far, Pakistan has carried out some sort of concrete steps by fencing the entire border and limiting the movement to some of the openings, 2 or 3, if I'm not mistaken. But coming on to the first part of your question about the Pashtun nationalism, I think that this kind of narrative or perspective has already been emanated only from the Afghanistan soil, not from Pakistan soil. In Pakistan, yes, there are some reservations about some sort of rights or some sort of movement, and as in every other country in the world regarding the civil rights movement, it is not only in KPK, Punjab, Sindh, Balochistan, or any other part of Pakistan. It is a routine matter that some political party would protest to have its own agenda or to put forward its own demand to the central government. It is a part of the democratic proceeding, or for that matter, the state. KPK, which is adjacent to the border of Afghanistan, the KPK province of Pakistan is having its near to 15 years ruled by a single political party. So it shows that stability is already there. The part of the problem is the tribal areas of Pakistan, and Pakistan has done quite a marvelous job in that sense, in this sense, by integrating those tribal areas into the KPK province, so as to bring them into the state functionary and to regularize them. So I think this has also benefited Pakistan to a large extent, because the terrorist activities have not only subsided in those tribal areas, but that is why the terrorists were forced to run away into the Afghanistan soil. So that is why Pakistan is concerned that although we have erased the remnants of terrorism from our soil, but since Afghanistan is our neighbor and terrorists are finding safe haven inside Afghanistan, so there is a possibility that once again those terrorist activities, the Afghan soil would provide the terrorists to regroup and re-emerge onto the arena and cause a threat to Pakistani security. So that is, and it is also being fueled by the espionage operations or by the spy activities of Indian intelligence services. That is why Pakistan is concerned, and Pakistan has time and again conveyed its concern to the Afghan authorities that they should not be lenient towards those terrorist activities or those terrorist groups which are causing instability inside Pakistan, and that are the threat to other neighboring regions as well. These demands of Pakistan regarding the terrorist activities or terrorist groups is not exclusive to Pakistan only. Similar sort of demand have been raised by Iran, China, Russia, as I had mentioned earlier. So it is a sort of a collaborative effort by the regional states to somehow make the Afghan authorities realize that their silence or their inability to do any sort of concrete steps is causing instability to the wider region. And we have also seen that likewise Afghanistan, there is a possibility that those terrorist activities might spiral across Central Asia as well, South Caucasian region as well, Middle East as well, which is already inflamed in the conflicts. So I think this wider region of Asia might feel the burnt if the Afghan authorities would not pay heed to the legitimate demands of their neighbors.
Well, now the question is then, why are the Afghan authorities so lenient on them? You know, when their Pakistan neighbor, the most almost powerful neighbor to Afghanistan, plus in terms of the relationship, in every sense, Pakistan has paramount influence over the region, particularly in Afghanistan, and over what goes on in the region. So why are they so lenient on them? I mean,
Well,
is it ideological, ethnical, or do they have ambitions towards Pakistani territories, or what are they up to?
well, I think there are two primary reasons. There might be many, but two are the most primary reason. The first one, as you mentioned, is ideological, religious, and all that. Because the TTP has, Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, has pledged their allegiance to the to the supreme commander of Afghan Taliban. So in that sense, they both are ideologically synced with each other, and having TTP under their influence, Afghan Taliban thinks and they hope that they might exert some sort of influence across the region as well, or they might deter the enemy or the neighboring states, and that is why they would be the neighboring state would be compelled to compromise on some of the demands of their own regard vis-a-vis the political apparatus of Afghanistan. So I think the Afghan Taliban, by utilizing this ideological front, this religious front, is basically trying or hoping to deter Pakistan, Iran for that matter, and any other country which does not totally agree with the Afghan version of political leadership. The second reason is regarding the geopolitical angle. And that geopolitical angle, as I have mentioned earlier, is being highly influenced by the Indian intelligence service when it comes to the Afghanistan side. So that is why, by having an alternative route for their diplomatic survival, for their economic survival, Afghan Taliban is basically eyeing to diversify their relations, so that they won't be dependent upon Pakistan solely, Pakistan or Iran for that matter. So that is why, because of their dependence or to be dependence on India in terms of diplomacy, in terms of economy, they are being lenient towards these terrorist groups, which have been proven time and again that they have been funded by the Indian intelligence. So I think these two are the main factors when it comes to the question of Afghan Taliban inability towards these non-state groups. And the last version might be that Afghan Taliban, they have already been the militia movement, the non-state movement, who have already who basically excelled in the guerrilla warfare, asymmetric warfare. So they do not really have the experience of governing, and that is why they find it very difficult and very hard to rain down those terrorist activities. And I think this is one of the factors as well, because Afghan Taliban, they are ideologically sync with each other. They have they have in them the instinct of guerrilla warfare, asymmetric warfare, but they do not have with them the capabilities of governance. So I think it is one of the crucial factor that would explain the whole situation, that why Afghan Taliban is are failing in raining down these terrorist activities.
So they lack the major skills to run a state, basically. Okay, they have excelled in guerrilla movement, but they have very little, if any, skills to run a proper state.
If you go in Afghanistan, in Afghanistan, just outside Kabul, there is no writ of the state in that sense. That you might be able to see the underdevelopment as well. You might be able to see many of the machinery being there useless. They have not been utilized properly by the Afghan authorities, and that is why they are still pretty much dependent upon the non-conventional means when it comes to carrying out their day-to-day economic affairs. For example, human trafficking, for example, smuggling and all that, for example, resorting to terrorist activities, if I may say so. So I think this is why this instinct of guerrilla movement as well as irregular warfare reflect in their methodology of governing. So I think this is also a problem and a concern for the neighboring states to look into.
Well, let's talk about the Chinese involvement. There is again a Western legend that the Chinese are involved in Afghanistan because they are actually exploiting Afghanistan's mines, particularly rare earth minerals, which have become fashionable to talk about, and others. What are the Chinese up to in Afghanistan, and are what the Chinese doing in Afghanistan, one way or the other, bring the Afghanistan, bring the Chinese and the Pakistanis to a conflicting point, or are their interests quite manageable?
Well, when it comes to Afghanistan, I think both Pakistan and China are on the same page. The first priority is obviously the stability. And if the stability ensures, it would follow with the economic development. And I think as far as China is concerned, Afghanistan provides a very critical and very easy access towards the larger Asian region, towards the larger West Asian region or Central Asian region or Eurasian region in that sense. So if...
or even to Western Asia, actually.
Yes, definitely. West Asia, as I said. So I think that China is basically eyeing that if Afghan authorities are really sincere in bringing about peace and stability in that part of the world, China might utilize Afghanistan as a transit route. And not only the transit route for its BRI project, but also for the development of for that country, because it will be an interdependent sort of relation. China would need Afghanistan for its BRI project, for its policy of investing surplus capital to foreign lands, and for Afghanistan, China would become the lifeline for the economic development, for the socio-political development, to run their day-to-day affairs, to lend some to take some of the loans by China and to develop their railways, their cities, their industrial base. So I think it would be, if it occurs, hypothetically speaking, if it occurs, it could be an interdependent sort of relationship. And there is no doubt that Afghanistan is rich in that sense when it comes to the rare earth minerals. So I think it would be also beneficial for China to invest inside Afghanistan. But as we all know, that China is reluctant to invest in that part of the country where there is instability. And that is why we have seen so far that China is not that much active inside Syria when it comes to economy as well. There was only Russia and Iran previously. Now there is Turkey. So, but China is basically taken a back seat when it comes to the conflictual zone. That is why regarding Syria, regarding Yemen, regarding Afghanistan, China is reluctant. Because when China pours in money, it expects that it would reap benefits for not only that host country, but also for China. And that is why, despite Chinese efforts to bring peace and stability inside Afghanistan, those efforts have been met with a lot of disappointment, because because the Afghan Taliban are basically unable to positively respond to those demands. And that is why it is the concern not only for Pakistan but also for China, because all of these collective efforts by the regional states are meeting the dead end, because in reciprocity there is no positive development on which these regional states might put their hopes for a little while.
So basically, what you are saying is that there has been so much talk about Chinese investment in the rare earth minerals in Afghanistan and all that, but much of it is in talks, not in real investment. And Chinese haven't basically gone in a big way into Afghanistan in that sense yet.
Yes, definitely, and not only with the rare earth minerals, but also the other sectors. For example, the communication, transportation infrastructure, mining, extraction, and all that arenas where China would like to invest inside Afghanistan. It would be very difficult if the current form of instability would continue in that part of the world. So I think China would be very cautious when it comes to investing inside the conflict-ridden Afghan territory.
Well, what about India then? Are they investing in Afghanistan in any real sense, or are they just involved with Afghanistan and in Afghanistan to simply, how shall I say, to contain Pakistan one way or the other, and to get the Afghanistani side on their side, Afghanistan on their side in their fight against Pakistan? Is there any real economic investment by India in Afghanistan in that sense?
Well, after 9/11 and since the US withdrawal in 2021, if there was one country which has taken a lot of it and which has made a lot from the US occupation of Afghanistan, I think that was India, because India was pretty much active in not only the political or diplomatic sphere, but also the economic, social development spheres of Afghanistan as well. India has set up various NGOs there and was involved in various sort of aid work and other things as well. So there, in that sense, India had a large amount of influence inside Afghanistan. After the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, that level of engagement has been shrunk, and it is argued, or it is analyzed, that they have come to a standstill. But definitely, since India has the legacy there in Afghanistan, so I am not sure about the current status of economic activities between the two countries. But definitely, India would eye to catch or to exploit these economic grievances of Afghanistan, of Afghan people, and to ensure that those grievances would be filled by the economic capital of or the economic investment of India. And it would not only allow India to have a larger say in the Afghan political, socio-economic spheres and to counterbalance Pakistan in that sense, but also to counterweight China, because we have seen this economic war going on and India is being presented as a countermeasure to China. So I think India would eye Afghanistan as another arena from which it could present itself as a counterweight to China. Because after the May conflict, let's be very honest, the status of India has been slightly downgraded into the global in the global affairs, and India is no longer being seen as a counterweight to China, and that is why US or the collective West is eyeing for other apparatus in the Asia Pacific regarding Philippines, for example, regarding Japan or Australia. But India has failed to impress the Western security policy making circles, and that it would counter the Chinese influence in the region for that matter. So I think India would find Afghanistan as another opportunity to present itself in the eyes of the US or the West, that it is still pretty much able to counter China. But I think it would be very difficult given the current circumstances. But definitely the will is there in the Indian side, that economic activities between the two countries would resume. But another problem is that Pakistan has closed the transit route for India. So any goods coming from or to India and Afghanistan are banned, and they are not allowed to take, or they are not allowed to be transited through the Pakistan territory. So India would definitely resort to the alternative option, that is Chabahar, which India is developing inside Iran. But on the contrary, and adding fuel to the fire, is that India is being sanctioned, and India is being given a lot of pressure by the US, that any sort of collaboration with Iran in energy domain, in the Chabahar port development project, would be taken as a anti-American activity, and they are liable for sanctions. So India is caught in a flux, because Pakistani side is closed, Iranian side is has a threat of being sanctioned. So there is no practical step as of now for India to resume its economic activities with Afghanistan.
Okay, excellent. Well, let's move on the Iranian side then. An area you are more knowledgeable, presumably, about. Now, what is the latest state of affairs between the two countries first? Because the Iranians actually have expelled huge numbers of Afghan people whom they had been hosting almost since the Iranian Revolution, but then they realized that their presence on their soil turned into a real security concern, a major security threat, actually. So what is the latest state of affairs between the two? And then what are the stakes, the major stakes between the two again? And Iran, basically, because of Afghanistan, perhaps Iran and Pakistan are coming closer, or it seems to us from the outside. And again, Russia seems to be supporting the process.
Yes, definitely. You see, when it comes to Pakistan and Iran relations, Afghanistan is one point or one agenda that always come under discussion, because Pakistan and Iran both feels and both faces similar sort of concerns vis-a-vis Afghanistan. There is refugee problem, there is security problem, there is a smuggling problem, and in addition, Iran face another problem vis-a-vis Afghanistan, and that is the problem of Helmand River, in which Afghanistan side is planning or has already constructed some of the dams on the Helmand River, and which would definitely deprive the lower riparian, in this case, which is Iran, it would deprive them from the water, and it would really cause them in the agriculture sector and affect the demography as well as the fisheries of the region. So I think it is the concern, and Iranian side is more harsh towards Afghanistan in that sense. And that is why we have seen that during the course of previous years, Afghanistan has Iran has deported a lot of Afghan refugees, because there were concerns that
almost 1 million of them or more.
Definitely, because there were concerns that their presence is causing some sort of terrorist activities inside Iran, referring to the Tabriz firing incident in the Holy Shrine back in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, and as well as the stabbing of some of the Iranian national inside Mashhad, which was attributed to the Afghan refugees. So I think such sort of security situation Iran cannot afford at this point of time, given its 12-day long conflict with Israel, given its involvement in the Middle Eastern affairs, given its sort of receding from the Gaza and Lebanon after the weakening of Hamas and Hezbollah, as well as the loss of Syria by the toppling of Bashar al-Assad. So Iran cannot afford that. All of these factors combined would eventually lead to the domestic insecure situation or domestic instability. So that is why Iranian authorities are pretty much strict and harsh towards the Afghan refugees, and they are doing their best to somehow deport the Afghan refugees. And it is being followed by Pakistan, because Pakistan has also said that we have hosted the Afghan refugees like our brothers and sisters for the past 40 years, 40 plus years, but now it is time that they should go back to their country, because Pakistan is facing similar sort of problems: the criminal activities, the smuggling activities, the terrorist activities. And most of the Afghan refugees that are residing inside Pakistan, they do not have the valid refugee card. They do not have the valid documents. So it is very difficult to trace them. If some sort of criminal activities occur somewhere, it is very difficult to trace them down because of the unavailability of the valid documents. So I think both Pakistan and Iran are united in that sense, that Afghan refugees should go back to their homeland, and the process has already been started. And once the refugees would go there, then there would be a sort of a sizable or a concrete process that could be taken up with the Afghan authorities to resolve the remaining issues. But on the flip side, Afghanistan is not ready to welcome their own citizens. because of various reasons, because they think that they are not, again, as I mentioned, they are not well versed in the governance affairs. So they are fearful that the influx of nearly 4 million refugees from Pakistan and the similar amount to that of from Iran, it would be very difficult for them to host them, to feed them, and to provide them with a respectable livelihood. So I think in that sense, Afghanistan should realize that if Pakistan and Iran are carrying the burden of feeding their citizens, it is liable and it is impediment upon Afghan authorities to ease their tensions with its neighbors, Pakistan and Iran, and to find a joint step or joint resolution to resolve this issue. But again, as I said, and we discussed many times in this interview, that Afghan authorities are somehow unable to resolve these issues.
Well, one last question about Russia. The Russians have drawn their lessons from the Afghan enterprise, if you like, after they got involved militarily, and then withdrew from the country, which led to to a number of problems inside the Soviet Union, and it left a bad legacy. And now it seems the current Russian administration, together with the Central Asian countries, Turkic republics, and Tajikistan, are acting in a much more prudent way. Can you say something about the Russian policy and the Central Asian countries' attitude towards Afghanistan and Afghanistan's attitude toward them?
Well, Russia has always considered Central Asian countries as its underbelly. So any sort of development that would occur in Central Asia has the could have the domino effect inside Russia as well. So and Central Asia is currently sharing the border with Afghanistan, and there is a lot of influx and movement to and from Afghanistan into Central Asia. So that is a source of concern for Russia, because if terrorists from Afghanistan might find their way towards Central Asia and then towards the Russian territory, it would create havoc and it would create a lot of security dilemma for Russia. On the other hand, since the withdrawal of US from Afghanistan, Russia is really eyeing to fill the vacuum alongside the regional countries, and the presence of Russia inside Afghanistan could compensate Russia loss in the South Caucasian as well as in Syria. Although we have seen that Russia is reinvigorating its ties with Syria by hosting Ahmad al-Shara, the new president of the new Syrian administration. But still, we have seen during the course of about a couple of years ago, Russia has lost two of its most critical allies, Armenia, because Russia did not come to help in its conflict with Azerbaijan, as well as Syria. After the toppling of Bashar al-Assad.
Well, of the two, perhaps Syria was more important, but Armenia had become a total burden on Russia.
Definitely,
with no strategic value anymore. Once you have Turkey on your side and you develop rapprochement with Turkey, you wouldn't need Armenia anymore, which was totally persistent and didn't want any proper negotiating leading to a peaceful situation between Azerbaijan and Armenia. So basically, Russia may have actually lost an ally, but it may have gained quite a bit as a result. But Syria was certainly a completely different kettle of fish.
Definitely, you are right in this sense. But since I put up the issue of Armenia is because of this reason. Armenia was the part of Russian-led CSTO, and Armenia was a treaty partner, and it was upon Russia to assist its treaty partner in its conflict with any other country, for example, in this case, Azerbaijan. But the absence of Russia in the whole Azerbaijan-Armenia conflict basically reflects that Russia, in the wider global audience, specifically in the global south, that Russia could not safeguard its treaty ally, that is Armenia, and it was followed by the toppling of Bashar al-Assad, another ally in the case of Syria. So I think Russia is the people inside the global south are basically viewing Russia that it has involved itself so much into the Ukraine conflict that its other interests elsewhere in the globe are being compromised, and that is why, to compensate for the loss of the Middle Eastern ally as well as the South Caucasian ally, Russia is trying to hold its grip and to ensure its footprints inside Afghanistan. And it would allow Russia to have its presence inside Afghanistan and then to Iran as well, because again, after the signing of the strategic partnership between Russia and Iran, Afghanistan provide a very straight pathway. It would erase the concerns of Russia regarding any sort of instability inside Central Asia, domino effect into Russia. It would allow an easy access for Russia to have to the Indian Ocean and Persian Gulf via Iran, and it would also allow Russia to fill the vacuum left by the US withdrawal inside Afghanistan and to have some sort of say in the regional proceedings. So I think in that sense, Russian interests are pretty much align to the stability of Afghanistan. And because Russia is involved there, China is involved there because of the BRI and investment, Pakistan is concerned because of the refugee and terrorist activities, so as Iran. So I think these make these four countries a natural partner in jointly resolving the issue of Afghanistan.
Well, excellent. I think we've covered all the grounds we wanted to, and thank you very much, Feraz. You've given us all the insights, and you've shed light on all the issues that are not necessarily well known to the Turkish public. Thank you very much, and hope to see you again online on some other programs. And ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of today's Strategic Compass. Until I get back to you with another expert and another topic, bye-bye for now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hassan. Bye-bye.